Welcome to the Children's Literature and Reading Support for DPPE and DJPE. I'm Mrs. Richter, your tutor for Children's Literature and Reading Support. You can contact me always between 5 and 8 during the week. My number is 0811 281431. Now, what do we want to understand about this presentation? The objective here is to understand the following important concepts: terminology and verbs, answering questions, and content-based questions and answers. Terminology and verbs. Familiarize yourself with the most important terminology. Please, if we ask define, you have to define and make sure you know the definition. You cannot just write, for instance, a quick answer. You must have the specific definition. Make sure you understand what is expected of you. Answering questions. Take note when you answer a question. Let the marks guide you. If the question asks that you must list 5 activities, then you need to list 5 activities, not 20. If we ask the other way around, it's a long question, and we ask you, for instance, you must explain for 30 marks. That means you have to jot down 30 facts to get your marks. Make sure that you are reading your questions thoroughly through. Then, content-based questions and answers. I'm here to assist you with the most important questions that you may experience or struggled with. I know some can be difficult, but please take note that I just made a short summary of each one. You can still fill in a little bit body to your answers. With this presentation, you will be guided to understand the topics and questions. For example, elements, setting a story. Setting a story, you need to have the time and location where the story is taking place. Is it in the 1900s? Is it in the early years? Or now in the modern time? Setting contributes to a story. I cannot have all clothes in a new story unless my story is about say for instance, the Wild West. There you can have the ladies with long dresses, but you cannot have Peter Pan included in that story. Is the story reflecting a variety of settings? Do you create a feeling that the audience can be with you? Are they experiencing the conflict? Urban, suburban, or rural cultural settings are very important to set that realistically. For instance, if you use a huge black pot, then you must use it amongst the correct people. So your setting, your area, everything must be in order. Your characters, your plot, and your resolution, these are all part of your elements when you set a story. Now, very important, identify 5 key areas of mastering reading: phonemes, word recognition and phonics, comprehension, vocabulary, and fluency. I just jot down these 5 key areas. Make sure you understand what each one means and what that actually entails. Define visual discrimination. I put this one especially in our presentation so that you can see what it means define. Define means actually to give a definition. It is to see the subtle differences between objects or pictures and to see if it matches up. It can be described as paying attention to detail, and it gives the child the ability to identify if something belongs or not. Please, when I ask define visual discrimination, it's not about your sight. Is there something wrong? You need glasses. Please stick to the definition. Now, we look at the next one is intrinsic motivation. I need to explain this concept because I think a lot of our students does not understand this. Intrinsic means inside yourself. Just look at the first word in, within yourself. Extrinsic is outside, like buying someone a gift or you give someone money. That is extrinsic motivation. Intrinsic means inside yourself. Now, the learners, to get them intrinsically motivated means you really need to do something for them to motivate them. without giving them sweets or chippies or money, anything, stars like that. Now, the lessons must be very short, normally 15 to 20 minutes, just enough time to read out loud. Then, there must be a discussion after the story. A teacher can put the little child who has got problems in a group to function within a group, or pair him with a similar friend. The teacher can also read a lot of stories and that the child can listen to. And then remember, let your child tell you, let him predict the story, the end maybe. Be humorous, let him choose books to encourage the learner, because he likes a book, so you will read that to him or her. Now, following the reading up with a drawing or a role play, make it interesting. Teachers must implement practices in the classroom to support internal motivation, like having fun activities and hands-on science books. There can even be activities like that, cut out the dinosaur, paste it in the correct order. The reading material must be relevant. I mean, you cannot give a little child a book that is actually for children like 14 to 15 years if the child is only 8 years old. Activate the child's background knowledge. Ask him or her what you know about this story and correlate that with their background. Practice reading the book to decide where to pause. Let the child hear, how do you read? Or do you just read quickly? For instance, I'm just going to make an example. Practice reading the book to decide, I mean, that's not interesting. You have to use your voice and the tone, and the rhythm must be correct. Make connections between their own lives and the story. Choose reading lessons that include their specific cultures. If a learner is interested, he or she will gain confidence and will continue. A confident learner will also grow. The reading quality will improve and he will be allowed to move to a higher level. Let children read for the sheer enjoyment. It can be inside the school or outside. And then remember, repeated experiences of relevance in the classroom increase their interest and enjoyment. Learners will be positively engaged if they see there's a nice theme that's going on and it correlates with the books and the worksheets and activities that they are doing. Now, the main thing is here also to bring in their cultures. See if you can rather have a story about Sarah's own culture stories and bring it into your classroom and use that as a starting point. Then let's look at identifying criteria for evaluating the suitability of pre-primary literature. It's very important that you know how to identify these type of books. Books that reflect the everyday world familiar to children, playing with friends, visiting family, and going to sleep. Books that encourage children to play with words and phrases. You might ask yourself questions about, is this book really well written? And can the learners understand, enjoy this book? Is it on their level? And does the picture complement the text or pictures? It can be theme-related reading to enhance the experience of the events. And remember, for small children, it must be in a large format. Simple books with repetitive words like the caterpillar eats, the caterpillar is going to town, the caterpillar, story like that. Or the little red hen is a very good example here also. Does this book stretch the child's attention span and vocabulary? And does this story avoid the gender, race, or other stereotypes? That's all things you need to ask when you evaluate a book. We can also have a checklist in your mind to identify the story, interesting or conflicts for children to explore, how the conflicts are resolved. Characters, a variety of culture groups, males and females must be always included in the story, not only one gender, and see if they are in leadership roles. Then the theme, values or lesson to be learned, the setting, again, a variety of urban and suburban, is it realistic? If there's culture settings, are the illustrations also diverse population? Avoid reinforcing stereotype social groups, other considerations like age appropriate and values. Then everything must be realistically, like I said, for instance, your setting must be correct with the culture. You cannot have a culture of the Bushman, for instance, where they are in New York. That won't work, or in town. Illustrations must also be good and valued and to the real point. Let us describe now the retention of what was read. Remember, it's very important that you know how to describe it. Children can be active participants in reading stories, doing actions at certain incidents in a story or repeat the action words. Kids love to repeat things, like you clap hands and you say a word and they will repeat it, repetitive words. You turn the page while the teacher reads to the group, draw pictures afterwards and make objects of the characters as maybe an art project. Dramatize the story even in your art period for a mark and create a play based on the story. Keep the books in a reading corner for them if they want to read. You have a nice reading corner with the carpet and the kids can go there and read. Put out similar topics, write a journal, discuss the meaning of some words. Teachers and children can make graphic organizers of the content and they can read a lot to the learners. Learners must interact. If not reading, he did not truly comprehend. I mean, if a child just sits there, is not even responding, then he did not comprehend. Guide the learner then to understand what was read by stopping and ask sometimes a few questions. That's also a nice way to get him or her involved. You can even use color cards, sticky notes, and the learners must point to it. If the story is exciting, they can point to the pink. If they do understand, to the green one. The orange one, a smiley face, because it's maybe a funny incident. By giving learners a small focus and a reason to interact with the text, they are more likely to remember what was read, because it was a continual check-in that you did for their understanding, and which will lead to the sticky notes, like you point to this or that one. Then, some learners are not proficient at converting the words they read into a movie in their heads yet. As the rest of us, we do sometimes, you form the whole story in your brain like a movie. Now, sometimes kids can't do that. Now, sometimes they are merely doing word calling much of the time. Movie making is a skill. You can develop that with your child by letting them guess and help them to form that little picture. For instance, let's take again the little red hen. Show them a picture of the hen, and then you say, remember now she's red. Now they must imagine that. Don't give them all in a picture form. Then word calling is a left brain auditory task, while creating a picture or movie for those words, it's the responsibility of the right brain hemisphere. When a learner regularly reads a passage well, but can't remember what is said, we know that he is using an inefficient strategy for his comprehension. He tries to remember the exact words as he read, rather than converting the words into a picture. Whether he is reading for recreational information, he must change the words into images in his mind. The more these images involve the senses, in other words, your sight, sound, smell, feel, the greater the comprehension will be. Daily training is necessary to build this comprehension. Now, we continue with the steps. The teacher reads a passage aloud. Choose material to read that is interesting and very descriptive. Standing in front of the child as you read to him or her, have the child sit upright and keep his eyes upwards, then creating a movie in his mind. You can pretend that you are looking at the projection screen or the writing board, any flat surface, and then you say, let's make the movie. You read the sentence out loud twice. Then ask him a few questions until you are sure he is seeing the pictures of the words in detail. As you do this training, instruct the learner how to move his picture and freeze them when he wants to notice something. When you get to the end of a passage you're reading, instruct him to rewind the movie in order to answer the questions. Ask the questions direct as he gazes upwards and as he reviews this movie for the answers. This is a very exciting part. You can even do that with yourself and make a movie yourself by imagining things and put the picture in your mind. The learner will be amazed how easy it will become to answer questions. Remember, he formed the whole picture or the whole story now in his brain. So now if you ask him questions, he can easily pick that up. Now, step 2. The learners read aloud to you. After they've made the picture, now they can read to you. After the learner has demonstrated proficiency in converting words to pictures, as he hears them, he is ready to read the words himself. Now he creates his own movie. Select a reading passage that is easy for him to read, so that he can concentrate on making pictures and not sounding it out. Step 3. The learners read silently. When the learner is successfully reading aloud while making a good picture in his mind, you can get him to read a passage silently, asking him to stop every few lines or just to tell you about what he had created their own picture in his mind. If the picture are detailed and accurate, you can have him read to the end of the passage uninterrupted. At the end of this reading, have him then again rewind his film and tell you all that he has read. His words to pictures process will soon become automatic. Remember, if a child has no pictures, he won't have any answer. A few pictures, a few answers. Great pictures, then we really know he comprehended. In other words, great answers. This strategy is very simple but very effective. Expect to see great changes in your child's comprehension and retention of reading material in your learners. So whenever your child is struggling, you have to sit. This is a proved method also. When something is observed, the brain goes through 3 stages. It pays attention to the stimulus. It remembers many details of it and stores this information then in your short-term memory. It compares the information in the short-term memory with all other information stored in the brain. For example, if you are doing your assignment or your exam a day before you need to write or hand it in, then you put your information in your short-term memory and you won't be able to recall it. The brain interprets the incoming information as familiar or something new. Now these steps forms the basis of learning. The implication are that if a child cannot focus or pay attention, the brain cannot do its functions properly. And the quality of learning and taking in information and processing is hampered. The short-term as well as long-term memory is then dysfunctional. The brain stages, again, the child cannot remember what sound to make for the letter T or T in the word, how to spell a word, or he can't even remember the normal 4 plus 3 or 2 plus 2. See the differences between letters and numbers. He cannot hear the differences between phonics and words. The child will not be able to remember instructions or understand concepts, because the brain cannot compare the incoming information with the existing information. For effective learning to take place, in other words, attention, memory, and perception are regarded as essential. Now, children need to develop and maintain to read. This is also a long question, but I just have the main points here for you. You must be able to discuss this. Reading must be viewed as a social act, sharing with peers, the family. If the child he will not learn any new words if you do not share the knowledge or the words. He or she must be able to appreciate the pleasures of learning and reading. Children must be comfortable with a variety of different forms and genres. Like little rhymes, poems, things. That's different genres. And the short story, longer story. Reading is an opportunity to explore all their interests. Read widely for a variety of purposes. It can be now for gaining information or just for enjoyment. Maybe you just need some facts, so you will just find the facts then. Reading must be based on life experiences. It must be pleasurable and fulfilling. Otherwise, the learner won't choose. I mean, if you just have a book there with no pictures for a little girl or little boy, they won't read it. But if you have a colorful book there, they want to read that. Now, if they choose to read, it will lead to becoming a fluent reader. If not, negative effects and all those not enough practice will become a non-fluent reader. Reading, we must remember, is an active process of constructing meaning the whole time. Now, let's see. We remember in the beginning we started to define visual discrimination. Let us look at a few activities that I can do with my learners. Demonstrate how you can assist your child with different visual discrimination activities. You can play the what's different game. You can have 2 cookies or 2 pens, and you can say, see, ask similar things. They are both blue, but one is light blue, one is dark blue. Now you can go more to the difference. A thicker one and a thinner one. The one is longer, the one is shorter. There are so many things that you can play with. That's the different game. Nesting and stacking toys. Promote pattern recognition. That can be now from a small, say for instance, cube to a bigger one, or the other way around. You can work on size and identify words with incorrect capitals. Ask the learners to identify the word or the number spaced incorrectly. Make flashcards with correct letters on one side and the wrong one on the back side. Get the learners to mark a paper that has incorrect letters or formations. For instance, if you have your child, I can just draw here. There's a 2 on the one side, and on the other side you can have the incorrect or curly 2 that is not the correct one. So they are used to this one, that is the correct one, and that one we also teach them to incorporate. Now, I would like you to really go through this and study hard, and remember the concepts are difficult, but you need to familiarize yourself with that. And then also, please, if you really need to have assistance, you can email me. You can phone me, but please, weekdays from 5 to 8. Again, I will give my cell phone number again, 0811 281431. And then please, make sure you know what is the difference between a definition and just to comment. Definition you need to define, and also you need to let you be guided by the marks. And remember, 1 mark equals a fact. If it's a long question for 30 marks, you need to dot down 30 facts.